Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm your moderator, Tiffany Yacolino, and I work as part of the marketing team at IIBA. IIBA is an independent, not-for-profit professional association serving the global business analysis community, a recognized thought leader dedicated to elevating the discipline of business analysis. We provide our global community with relevant tools, resources, and networking opportunities. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Questions tab in your control panel. We will answer some of your questions at the end of the session as time permits. You can find today's deck in the Handouts tab. Today's webinar recording will be available for a limited time on the Webinar Archives page within 7 business days. I am here with your speaker today, Chi Lam. Chi has a 25-plus year career in information technology where he's worked for both corporate end users and as an IT consultant. He's worked with clients such as the US military, British High Commission, and various Fortune 500 companies, and he is now the founder and CEO of Deathflix in Toronto, Canada. Here, he offers innovative and specialized IT infrastructure, support, and advisory services, such as voice over IP, video conferencing, advanced secure IP networks, cybersecurity practices and framework enablement, as well as virtual CIO. He is also the talented author of Adapt and Overcome: What Business Owners Need to Do to Keep Employees, Clients, and Infrastructure Safe During a Time of Crisis. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'll hand the discussion off to Chi. Hi, Chi.
Hey, thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, all the attendees, and Tiffany and IIBA for having me, for the opportunity to share our work and learning so that we all can continue to educate our peers, families, friends, and not to become a victim, but benefit from it. So, as we all know, the impact of COVID-19 and organization is real. The rush to enabling remote workforce had organizations stressed to open up, and of course to allow people to work remotely as quickly as possible. And in doing that, it's so obvious how easy they have made it for criminals and how much of an increase they're seeing in criminal attacks and how successful they are becoming. And I'll explain later in the slide. So if you remember back in April, in one of the IIBA blog, I mentioned that many companies have some form or shape of challenges when it comes to remote capabilities. If you recall that at one point at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone jumped into audio conferencing call, try crippling the network. You get drop calls, you can get through, meeting cut short automatically, voice quality actually degrade, and all sorts of issues. So this pandemic is actually shifting the entire workforce to work remotely with challenges. So you're talking about the infrastructure upgrade, steep learning curve for both, the IT and also the users, in order to support and use it. As you can imagine, for the past, 7 months now, I guess, our team has been working nonstop to support these functions. And what we're going to share with you are some of our insights. So change is already happening, it's accelerating. I call it, it used to be a checklist to get a firewall, router, switches, as cables to secure your own perimeter, like in the office, right? While it's still essential, I call it the old world on the left side, but it has become increasingly irrelevant in many cases today. The explosion of connected world means that more collaboration with apps and people where cloud computer proves to be low cost, effective, and agile to business. I'll call it the new world on the right side, right? Things that we take it for granted, like if you remember, we used to have like a lot of full-time employees, right? Now it turns to gig economies, outsource, like people like Upwork or Fiverr, right? And then you have, you still remember those days when you have like a bunch of CDs with license keys where you install applications. But guess what? Today, everything is in the cloud. Subscriptions, you just download and go full features of applications. And of course, the days with, I still remember the day I have a BlackBerry, carrying my own BlackBerry with my other device, Nokia, those days, right? And now it's all bring your own devices, your iOS, Android, and then you can even have your work-related stuff into your own devices. And of course, as we mentioned over and over, the network firewall has become less irrelevant because everything now is remote, cloud first, mobile first models to networks. And of course, at the end of the day, you keep track of all the information within a corporate. Again, it's no longer relevant. Everything it's beyond corporate security boundary. So what do we call all this? Call it digital transformation. Like it or not, voluntary or not, all companies are going through a digital transformation. So decentralization with remote work means more hacking opportunity for cyber criminals. I want you guys to think about it. When you have people work outside of corporate networks, our home network is not as sophisticated and secure as in corporation, period. So what happened? Let's look at our, how does it look in your backyard here in Canada? There are a slew of incidents if you Google them. Like if you Google Canada plus breaches, you get from city of Hamilton to hospital to Tim Hortons. But quickly, if you ever get a blood test or anything like that with here in Canada, most likely you know who LifeLab is, right? There were 15 million user records was compromised. Even though it's a drop in the bucket compared with our neighbor in the US, but that's almost half of Canadian populations. CPA office, CRA, 330 records, CRA. No, most likely we will shut down by the hackers. And the most recent one, just 2 weeks ago, the BC legislature website and email system were hacked. Right? Then damage control steps taken, security measures. It's no longer matter anymore because whether you like it or not, the security is paramount, is going to happen. The FBI says 400% increase of the Internet Crime Complaint Center. It's the main ingestion point, right? It was quadrupled from 1,000 to 4,000 complaints daily. Now that's back in April, right? All these crackers share the same downside, right? In the digital world in which we live, they deliver an extraordinary array of cybersecurity challenges. So you might ask, who's all behind this? Let me take you this. As I mentioned earlier, so on your left side, the old is less relevant now, and criminals are more interested in targeting users' smart devices in the Internet of Things. Like things like smart car, your smart watches, smart homes. So the concentration is really on the right side of this diagram. We all know software as a service, SaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, right? Infrastructure as a service, IaaS, right? How about get this concept? Hello, cybercrime as a service or attack as a service. So as sad as it is, some of us are held responsible for indirectly contributing to the rise of cybercrime. So today, if I don't like my competitors in business, or anyone, in fact, I can order a quote unquote hitman. So cybercriminals actually today offer modules for prospective clients to fill out their service requests. You can order types of attacks like target IP address, desirable malware or exploit toolkits, etc. Right? So don't be surprised, right? Now, if you hear someone sitting next to your Starbucks coffee table and say, "Hey, can I have social engineering with a cherry on top, please?" Right? It just seems like in a movie, right? It's happening. So it's already established where you can actually order your favorite attack a la carte, right? Tailored to your budget and goal. The advent of cybercrime as a service, as I mentioned, or attack as a service, is actually driven by sophisticated organized criminals, right? And it actually has transformed the threat landscape of data security, including the way it's protected. So companies have been forced to doing remote work to a point they realize is pretty darn good, right? REI, for example, the outdoor retailer, just announced that it's selling its brand new unused 8-acre corporate campus in Bellevue, Washington. Like even in Uber, they told their employees, hey, they could work from home through until mid next year. They even give like $500 stipend to set up a home office. And in fact, many of our clients too, they actually give extra incentive for people to set up from home. In terms of monetary, in terms of food support like Uber Eats and things like that. And back to our home turf again, Shopify. They say office centricity, it's over. So, recent survey, right, by the core group of 500 founders of venture-backed companies indicate that when we emerge from this pandemic, right, we're likely to see profound changes to the professional world. 70%, they say, yeah, I'm okay to work from home. 66% thinking to spend money elsewhere than an office space. Well, think about it. It's actually a big overhead fixed cost, right? You can actually relocate that fund to somewhere else. Someone else. And 76% actually says, they actually achieve better productivity. So I realized that ever since I work from home, I just couldn't stop working. I don't know about you guys, but personally, I think it's been nonstop and it's very productive. I'm not sure it's good or bad. I
That
leave it to you.
has happened to me as well, Chi. Sorry for interrupting, but yes, I do find that the work from home means you're always on. But I thank you for sharing these stats. I wanted to do a quick poll to see how our attendees feel about the future of remote working. So I'm just going to take a moment here and launch this poll. And I'll give you about 30 seconds to provide your responses. And our question is, we want to know how you feel about working remotely. And would you like to continue working remotely after the pandemic? Yes or no? And I'm seeing responses come in. Mostly everyone has voted, so I'm going to close the poll now and share the results. And it's overwhelming. 85% say yes.
Wow.
So most of our audience would like to continue. So, the insights today are really important. So thank
I
you for
think
letting.
that's pretty much aligned to the trends that's going, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I will hide this poll and I will hand it back to you, Chi. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Tiffany. And while the poll actually sets the trends, I would say, in I think it's heading in the right directions. So it actually comes down to key factors. We know cyber attacks is rising, and remote work is rising. They both fuel each other's growth, right? As you can see, cyber attacks rising because of work adoption is gaining, and because of work adoption is gaining, cyber criminals tends to like to exploit. So really, what can we do? So I'd like to first look at the tactical punch list that we can do today to secure the environment. We find that it's very effective, and this is from our field experience that I'd like to share with you guys. They're not costly, but you do need to both trust but verify. That's why you need to ask questions and get efficacy, that the questions you're asking are in fact implemented properly. And then lastly, of course, the education is critical, and we'll talk about that at the very next presentation. So the way an attack works is that what you should be expecting, or maybe not expecting, but what's out there is you read from the left to the right. Phishing, 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 right? So you all seen a fish coming from. We are seeing them in our clients getting range from 5 to 10 a day, or 1 to 2 a day, or perhaps 2 or 3 a week. And the phishing scams are extremely sophisticated. So well that the picture on the left side of the screen shows warning. It's like scam. No, I'm just kidding. Like it's usually not that actually. Your app is not smart enough to tell you that, hey, it's a scam, right? But it's very clever. And the price from the attack is to talk to you, your users or senders, into log into your downloaded file. And once executed, we establish a foothold, right? The Microsoft Outlook or website asking you to download your voicemail in return for credentials in order to verify something. That's where they get you every time, right? And then ultimately, this thing is financial fraud. Money is the motivation. Once they get logged into your account and or sender's account, there is a background, they're forwarding emails. You don't know they are reading your emails, and if they're talking, if they see you talking about money transfer, anything like that, they'll go and find where to redirect the information associated with that wire. So I'll show you one of our investigation and forensics samples later in the slide. So what do we do? In order to basically steal that money, you can see how it is easy to do this. You don't have to be technically astute to do it. So it's amazing the benefit. Talking about, especially if most of these criminals are coming from Nigeria or Eastern Europe, right? There's absolutely no downside to the attempts to do this. So we want to make you all acutely aware of simplicity yet sophistication in which these attacks take place. And the fact that you all can benefit yourself and your stakeholders by making sure you're asking certain questions and then putting in a couple of controls on the critical business process as well. So if we were going next slide, let's jump straight into these controls. And I just want to mention one more thing. We're not going to require you to be an IT professional or a security expert to understand them, but we do want you to be able to ask the questions, right? Let's dig in. So the first one here is, does your organization allow your users to have local administrative privileges? Most organizations do not disable this. So the short answer is, you absolutely should, very few users should have the need to have local administrative privileges. And in essence, what this means is that they can download software and install software. So if they get a phish and they click on that link and they got malicious attachment to it without them knowing it, they could execute it if this is turned off right away. That would prevent that. It's all started with protection of the computer, right? So number one, strongly recommend not allow business to use non-company issued PC or laptop. So if you, try not to, use your home computer to access your work resources. That's what I'm trying to say. And secondly, strongly recommend to restrict user without admin privileges. Right? It's a big red flag for security auditors. Number two, this is the big one. So the number two control here that we would strongly encourage to ask is software patching and antivirus. So software patching is by itself a constant process. Right? You often hear of breaches in the news. In fact, the CRA most recent one is because one of the patch, critical patch, was not applied, right? So they deal with a critical patch that somehow wasn't provided for an organization, and a malicious attachment or some other capability was able to exploit that unpatched vulnerability. So IT departments and even some IT companies, right, managed service provider, actually really do struggle maintaining a cadence to patch and ensure that any virus updated, scan on computers within the physical network, right? So imagine now, as you're all working from home, whether your computers are even being patched, right? Or whether your IT team can tell if any virus is still downloading definitions, or if it's still running as it should, right? I can bet you, if you watching from or listening to this webinar from your laptop, just pull up on the start, if you're using Windows, type update and hit enter. I can guarantee you a lot of us still have a lot of updates to do, right? So without having any very focused attempt to look at machines and follow up daily, these things tend to get overlooked. So it's natural cadence of entropy, and it's very, very critical flaw that, quite frankly, needs to be managed, right? There's a saying internally, as I deal with clients ourselves, if you force it, you're going to get many unhappy users. If you don't, you've just increased your risk exposure. Number three, all your SaaS applications have MFA or SSO enabled, right? So these screens look very familiar. So as we move along that, we're seeing criminals break into our systems through Microsoft OWA, Outlook on the web. We're seeing it with other systems too, like whether it's G Suite or other email capabilities on the web. But so far, by far, OWA is the number one way criminals are trying to break in, because, well, Office 365 is very popular, right? Then other SaaS applications like QuickBooks Online and etc. Make sure you have MFA enabled. But here's the kicker, right? Before we saw this massive move to remote workforce, most organizations didn't even know they had an OWA turned on, right? And it turns out by default it's enabled, it's actually there. And even more so, what is not enabled is the MFA. So you have OWA enabled, but your MFA is not. It makes it so easy for criminals just to break in, right? As a result of those two deficiencies, right, the criminals actually myopically focus on trickling people into thinking, right, they are logging to something they're not, right? As we show you on the other page earlier, giving up the credentials, and then those criminals log in through OWA. So I would highly encourage you to do double or triple check. Do you have OWA enabled during this massive rush to remote workforce? Most organizations are just turning it on with a click of the switch, right? The key thing here is it shouldn't just be turned on. It's essential that the mandatory configuration for MFA is enforced. Now, the key word here is enforced, right? So the questions to ask is, do we have OWA? Is it turned on? And if it's so, do we have multi-factor authentication enabled? Sorry, I'm sorry, it's enforced, not enabled. See, it just proved to me that that's the case, right? People confused when you say, oh, is it turned on? Yeah, yes. But is it enforced? Right, there's a difference. So we've done investigations. Organizations thought it was, and it turned out that some people had it turned on and some people did not. So unfortunately, it only takes one person before criminal can get into an email system. Number 4. The next playbook for them is to set up a rule. Most people know rules through their browser, right? I'm out of office. You put in an auto rule that you get an email, right? So Christmas is around the corner. Hey, it's a Christmas hobby. I'm back in 2 weeks or more with family vacations. Please direct all call to here to there. Contact this person. Blah blah blah. Right. So those are the same kind of rules criminals prey upon to put in auto forwarding. So that they don't even have to log in into your email. They just get everything that comes through, like even more maliciously, which I'm going to show you later. They could set up a rule to delete anything from you and instead send out something differently from you, but you would never know that. So conversely, they could redirect inbound emails from that client that hit your box to another account and delete it before you ever see it. And right, in a very clever manner, they actually would be communicating with your sender instead of you. So suddenly, Sarah is talking to a Bob, and Sarah is actually Bob the hacker, right? And everything would be as it should be. So except that if you were to give them money wiring instructions, they would change those wiring, right? So the two key questions here: do you get and review alerts when a user creates a new rule? Second, does your organization allow auto forwarding out of the domain? We recommend that companies should receive an alert whenever there's a new rule created. That way, the rule created and looks like it's a little strange, you have alerting control there, right? We also recommend that organizations automatically preclude the ability for auto forwarding because outside the domain, because there's no need for it. So these are both relatively simple configuration to make, right? It will take probably IT member 5 minutes to do it, but the impact is huge. Number 5, remote access. Looks familiar? So we talked about email, and we talked about how criminals are after getting into your email. while equally so, they want to get into your network. And in addition to opening remote access to email through OWA. So many organizations have also rushed to allow users to get into their environment many times. Maybe they don't want to use or can't use OWA, and instead they may have what we call a remote desktop connection, or some of these other services you see listed on the screen, like TeamViewer, go to my PC, log me in, so on and so forth, right? But remember, all these are great tools to allow people to use their personal computer to get into the work computer. But the problem is most of your employees, right, are not going to be educated with the absolute need to also enable MFA or multi-factor authentication for all these systems. So the IT department may or may not have the ability to enforce the use of multi-factor. And so the critical question to ask is if you have open remote access or if you allow it, right? Do you have a way to enforce multi-factor for anybody remoting, right? So this remote access, just like any all SaaS or cloud application, it is critical. I can stress enough, it is critical that all forms of remote access to your network should have MFA or multi-factor authentication enabled. No exceptions. There should be no exception on that. 6, we're going to the bottom of the list now. So 6 looks familiar, right? You might have seen it, you might not. So to give you an analogy so that you can relate better. If you have an Android or iOS device, when you install an app, like, let's say Waze, Instagram, or TikTok, you get this app asking, hey, would like to access your camera and see you, then you say, okay. They also like to know, hey, we'd like to know your whereabouts with the location services. And he's like, yeah, I'm not sure, but maybe, right? And then suddenly they'll say, okay, I'd like to see your pictures too, access your picture. And they say, okay, maybe yes. Then they keep on asking these questions and say, hey, I'd like to listen to you, and probably sing in the shower with microphone access. And it's like, by then you're like, yeah, okay, well, you know what? Whatever, because I really want that app so badly, right? You just click accept, whatever, just accept. People are tend to drawn into having the pleasure of having the app. They don't care about security at all. Just click yes, 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 accept, okay. That's the best way of dealing with IT, right? So it's a very similar concept, right? Except this is directly targeting to your user account in the cloud. So this attack method allows actually criminals to maintain access to your information, even if you change the password or implemented MFA. Why? The access is from the application without your interactive login. So it's actually exploiting the application API, the API granted permission to gain access, right? So now here's a very unique one that's recently emerging, and it's really, really crafty. So if a malicious attacker has somehow convinced one of us, right, to grant them access with their credential harvesting, then they go in and enables those permissions to the plugins or the apps. And why this is very, I'll say, uniquely insidious, right? Once they give the permissions to the applications, right? Even if you change the password on the user account, which we see people doing after they had a breach, and even if you implement the multi-factor after this case, the permissions are persistent. There's a foothold established already. So I cannot emphasize how important it is for the IT staff to understand, and then they need to be reviewing the application permissions, right? So to give you a scenario, this can be done actually through add-ins or the quote-unquote productivity app, right? Convincing user to approve a malicious app, right? This can actually allow the attackers to maintain persistent and undetected access to your account. I'm saying Office 365. It also applies to Google Marketplace apps. The same thing. And next, last one. So we talked about technical controls, things to ask of your IT staff. Let's focus on the users now, us, people. At the end of the day, training is going to be one of your best defenses. And we recommend quarterly phishing training at a minimum. The key to phishing training is that you also want to be able to test your email gateway controls. I'm not going to get too much into it here in details, but you want to have ways to, in a perfect world, block those facials. And we see some organizations that have invested in those gateway controls. And guess what? They're still getting more phishing email. Why? Here's why. So one of the clever ways that criminals, if you look at the slide here, can you spot the difference? I'll let you take a look. So one of the clever ways that criminals can attack you is just do an impersonation attack that is changing domain ever so slightly, that in this instance from AP to AQ, right? Capital and capital, right? It's called typo squatting, and it's very effective. Now, it is a way to get around a lot of controls, and it's also a way that criminals can go after your email recipients, even if they are not in your email, right? Or if they were in your email and they were able to steal login credentials, perform like, let's say your banking password reset, your TD Bank, your Scotia Banks, and use that information to go after your money private website that you have. And quite frankly, I've seen it very effective, right? So at the end of the day, training is essential. So over here we have, what else do you guys see in a typo other than the Q? Most people won't get it. It's this one. There's a slight difference between the L and the letter 1. Anyway, so let's go right into forensics that we did. I want to show you what's behind the scenes that we've done. Over here, this is a victim OWA. Remember the rules I spoke about earlier? The rule name is called a dot. If you don't pay enough attention, you will glance over and not even realize there's a rule in your Outlook. Looks familiar, the Outlook rules? So what they do is they set low priority, delete, and mark as read. So you never know you receive email. That's number one. And someday, if you feel that your inbox is suddenly so quiet, be suspicious. So that's how they stay under the radar. So the information here has been redacted to protect the victim identity. We make a couple of changes to not to show the identity. So the recipient column is a hacker mailbox where all emails being forwarded to. The recipient status right in the middle. There's cashchin.com, right? That's the hacker. And suddenly, what happened is criminals know a lot about you. They know you're hiring a BAs, right? All the BAs out there. Where you are flying, where you went for your lunch, the flight number, which hotel you stay, and of course, they're more than happy to join into one of your confidential business online meeting anytime. Gone the days where James Bond tried so hard to break into a castle, right? Meanwhile, someone underground just do this at the comfort of the screen. So I mean, but then it would be very boring without the actions. So anyway, this is what happened behind the scenes. They study, they what we call is a lateral move. Once they get in, they stay quiet, stay low, and they do lateral move. And they, in a military term, they call it reconnaissance, right? They gather intelligence, they launch an attack that is contextual, meaningful, and very effective. So these are just 7, what I refer as MVP, the minimum viable product key controls. They are critical, they are cost effective, right? We do recommend you ask that of IT staff of your company or through my team member to report to the management that those things that you have looked into, right? But an absolutely critical component, which is the bottom line here, is unfortunately it's not always a matter of if, but when. And despite best intentions, you still might suffer a breach. Happen all the time. It's just the fact. So we've done tactical. Let's look at some key strategic tips business can benefit from. Number one, try to perform risk assessment minimum once a year. Now this is different from phishing campaign. Phishing campaigns every quarter, I suggest. Risk assessment at least once a year. It's an easy conversation, but knowing the facts is better than guessing. So we've done many assessments and we always find gaps. Keep it simple. We actually review also the written information security policy, or what we call short form WISP. We see this thick yellow pages that no one will ever read or understand. Often they are overly complicated because sometimes they include clauses that they will never do, or least that they wish to do. So what's the implication? You just shoot yourself in the foot, because when time comes to insurance claim for breaches or due diligence, you're in tough position to back up what you wrote, right? We typically suggest for an effective WISP is between 10 to 15 pages max. And then that's including addendums and references to other policies if you expand that. So if you want to expand your WISPs, you can do a references, which can include things like business continuity planning or privacy policy or AUP, acceptable use policy. You just reference them. Fox guarding the hen house. So everyone knows the saying: trust but verify. Right? Do you trust your IT people? You should, because they are one of the hard-working people making things work behind the scenes, right? However, systems and software changes so fast that as a human is very challenging task to keep up. I'll give you an example. There's this VP in time crunch and wanted to get software installed. He's adamant in getting the software installed and require admin rights on his laptop. So admittedly, the boss says so. IT people just gave him the admin rights, so both parties can have a peace of mind, right? And guess what? The admin rights wasn't revoked. And when security breaches happen, IT is to be blamed. And of course, the last one is always remember there's no perfect security. As I mentioned, try the MVP methodology. I'll show you what that concept is, right? And trusting security in your in-house or outsourced IT, right, or the developers is like it's like having fox guarding the hen house, right? There's no additional oversight or verification on the quality or the efficacy of the controls in place, right? Is your MFA enabled or enforced? On a normal user, you can't tell. I just tell you, yeah, it's enabled. Then you trust, yes, it is in place, but it's not, because it's not enforced. So I highly recommend to, we trust the IT, but we also need to verify. And of course, understand that the security control is constantly evolving, right? Develop a practical security goals and be able to have clear roadmap and set milestones to achieve your security goal. So plans and future, I guess, as you can see from the poll here, we kind of know the directions the trend is heading. It's a reverse trend. Office centricity is over, as mentioned by Shopify. We should provide safe and secure environment to the masses. Here in city of Toronto, right, the workplace modernization plan, right, about 95% of city staff surveyed in July, they said they like to keep working from home, And hey, 75 is pretty much aligned to our poll, at least part of the week after the pandemic. So only 5% participate returning to the office 5 days a week. Cybersecurity is here to stay. Security will be embedded and employed. Technology professionals like us must be vigilant and incorporate security practice into our daily job function. It's part of it, right? So what Michelle says that we are going to get to a point where it's almost like water treatment filtration system, right? If you are connected to the internet, you're going to connect through a cybersecurity network where it's going to cleanse it and make sure whatever passing through us is clean. Right, so what can you do in the meantime to bridge the gap, or what we have seen in the field? So as you may already know, BA, like business analysts, help guide business in improving processes, products, services, and software through data analysis. So BA are one of the most hardworking people that I know, and it's true. You guys are agile workers straddling the line between IT and business, to help to bridge the gap and improve efficiency. Right? Being middle person is not an easy job. I get it. So personally, I believe BAs are consultants, and we must uphold the efficacy of business dealings and technicality of the engineers. Right? From security standpoint, what does BA role? What does BA play a role? So I would suggest be an advocate for your IT department and project champion to your business leaders, right? In order to drive adoption and change with security in mind, always with the security in mind, anything that you do, because it's part of it is embedded. Anything we do with technologies, there's always a security in mind. We actually love working with BAs, and they usually be our advocates to our clients because they understand the tech and trusted internally by the business leadership team and IT engineers, period. You guys are awesome, right? For business analysts, I'll say, remember, here's some of the things that you probably could, ramp up your ability or your skill set is to add security specialization into your arsenal, right? Nothing better than having a cert that says that you can, demonstrate your ability. Of course, come with practicality is also learn the security basic from the security pro, and by working with a professional consultant, learn how to write security policies, and handle security projects. And of course, get certified from accredited organization such as IIBA. For business leaders, here's a business leader I want to say, without you championing your data security initiative as an important agenda item, no one will. Because navigating through IT technology, policies, and solution is not a straight path. Be supportive and open-minded to your BAs, right? Business analysts, IT advisors, and quite frankly, right, we need them to help you drive the adoption because you have better things to do. You're not here to take care of IT, but you have to champion and treat security as if your business depends on it, right? As I mentioned in the evolution of data security, if you remember the chart where the cybersecurity as a service, right? Cyber criminals are constantly improving and evolving. So do not think the second that your data security is adequate or perfect. There's no such thing as perfect data security, right? If cyber criminals today are working hard to break you, it's time for us to up our game and be vigilant now, right? Allocate a data security budget. OPEX, CAPEX, I'll leave it to your CFO. Oops, sorry. And one thing also for business leaders, I will suggest to consider a remote work program that actually supports the culture change. Right? As you know, the trend is heading remote work, working from home securely, including like flexible hours, supervision of remote work, and performance management by hiring security consultants and BAs to help you. All right, MVP. Here's the concept that I was talking about. Security is complex, security is hard, but we all have a solution. When we're not creating a product, right, all of us can take this approach using the concept of MVP. What is MVP? It's called minimum viable product. How does it work? Look at the chart. So we want a security solution that is functional and easy to implement now and not boil the entire ocean, so to speak. So I would suggest start by taking the simplest yet functional steps, which we have identified earlier to deter cyber criminals, right? They are highly effective and set a very good security baseline. And after that, then you can gradually build up based on your risk / cost / benefit analysis. All right, I think I have done a lot of talking. I'd like to turn it over back to Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Chi. What a great presentation. I'm going to take this opportunity now just to switch myself to the presenter here, and I'm going to open up the floor now for Q&A so Chi can answer some of your questions. I welcome our attendees to send your questions using the questions tab in your control panel. And actually, some of you have already done that because there's been some questions that have flowed in already. So I will go ahead and get started on our first question here. So first question says, we already have an internal IT who we trust. Shouldn't they already have these tests covered for us? What's your thoughts on that, Chi?
Yeah, I think that's great questions. Thanks, Tiffany. And so I'd like to share, prior to getting in security, I used to head one of the bank's global command center. And if there's one thing I can tell you, right, IT people or IT providers, if you had an outsourced IT service provider, by trade, are not necessarily security experts. And there's trade-off, if not a natural tension between IT ops and security, because quite frankly, the best security is to take the computer and throw it out of the ocean, and the best IT option is not to have any password and make it simple, so simple. And in between, I'll just say that often IT individuals who are very good, intelligent, and have great motivation to do their job, unfortunately don't know or not aware of these critical controls. And that's why it's important to trust but verify. And almost I would say that the assumption that the IT has security covered is a bad assumption. I hope that
Thank
answers
you.
questions.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic answer. Many questions popping in here. Next question is around budget, and it says, how much should I allocate or budget for a security program?
That's $1 million question for sure. Everyone is different. So unfortunately, I don't have the clear number. There's no industry standard for this, but many research or even from our experiences, every organization is different and have different priorities due to budget and their risk tolerance, and of course their industry and whether they are regulated or not. In general, in the market that we serve, I'll say average about 2,300 per full-time employee per year, or about 10% of your total IT spend.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, next question says, actually there are quite a few comments that are thanking you for the real life examples that you provided. It's really great context. This particular question says, you showed us real life examples which are very educational. However, I don't really understand security. Do I need to become a security expert or certified?
That's very good questions too. I get it all the time when we work with the BAs with our clients. They say, "How did you do that? How did you do that? How can I become like you?" I say, "You don't have to, right?" So the question is, the answer is no, you don't have to, but you can if you have great interests like the dramas, TV drama series like the CSI, right? I work with BAs who turn security expert, and all he does is penetration tests, right? Uh, in most cases, I encourage you to stay on course and take security stream specialization, such as the one like offered in IIBA, to further enhance and demonstrate your ability. I think Tiffany can fill in on the part.
Yes, that's a great point. IIBA does offer a cybersecurity program that covers an e-learning component as well as a certification. Um, I can provide the URL closer to the end of the presentation, but it is a comprehensive program that provides the basics as well as a certification. So that was that question. Sorry, I am scanning and answering as I go because the question box is really popular here. So next question is, let's just see here. Should security be a separate stream or should it be embedded in each agile story? Do you have any comments on that one?
Um, It depends on who your target audience, right? If out today, if I were to talk to business leaders, yes, it will be part of the agile stream. When you talk about technology, security should be part of that conversation. The approach is we don't look security as a separate component. We want to treat it as if it is inclusive. As you've seen the trend, like I showed you earlier, the Cloudflare, Michelle, the COO, it says cybersecurity will be part of your water filtering system, right? So to answer your question, when I talk to business leaders, yes, you always approach the topic with security as part of the agile embedded. But when you talk about very technical persons, then you're dealing with security engineers. Then that other part of business process, they not necessarily need to be get involved. All they do is they delve really deep into a security subject. So with that audience, then you only talk about security.
Wonderful. I'm going to squeeze one more in, one more question. There's some really great questions, and we will definitely do our best to follow up with you post-webinar if we haven't got to your question. But this
Sure.
question says, what if a person is an independent contractor with one computer? How can we protect our systems if we need to have local admin privileges, as an example?
Well, so I will look at it this way. By default, your security baseline should not include. But if you really have to include a contractor that requires local admin, then I'm sure he or she is a very important person. Then I would like to get him to get a sign off from your business leaders or your business champion or whoever who's responsible for your IT infrastructure. He or she has to take that responsibility to sign off. The IT people shouldn't make that decision. So you get the approval, you get a sign off. The other way you can also control is through conditional access, because this is a little bit of technical side where you can define specific controls or minimum compliant security controls that you're comfortable with, but not implement the whole suite of security that prevents users or the contractors from signing in. So you can implement that. There are different controls for different purposes. For example, like your data loss prevention, making sure your antivirus is up to date before you can even log in. At a bare minimum, whichever you like, we call it conditional access. You can apply those to your the contractor.
Thank you. That was a great way of summarizing something that's probably quite technical. Um, so that's all the time we have for questions for now. So As mentioned, Chi is the author of a new book called Adapt and Overcome, and we're doing a giveaway for today's webinar attendees. So we'd ask you to head over to Desflix on LinkedIn, follow and reshare any posts with the hashtag Protect Your Business or Cybersecurity for your chance to win a copy of the book. So head over, check it out, and good luck to everybody for your chance to get your own copy there. And right now, I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank Chi for hosting such a great giveaway for our attendees, and also for your time and your invaluable insights on cybersecurity best practices in the time of a global pandemic, and really sharing some of those hands-on experiences and tangible examples that we can implement and really relate to on a firsthand basis. The
Yep,
best Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
No, no. I actually appreciate your time, and every one of you who took out your precious 1 hour. I know it's not always easy, and by this time I know how crazy things are, and if you have learned from this, it's been good for us because with the way this second wave COVID has been has been taken, one thing, I'm sorry for sure, right? So there's no honor amongst this. Uh, Thank you all very much having questions, and we're happy to answer for those questions not answered.
Thank you so much, Chi. And again, the best way that you can reach him is via social media for the giveaway, or also just to reach out, LinkedIn, Twitter, and online at desflix.com. And finally, if you'd want to learn more about IIBA's offering on cybersecurity training and our certification program, you can find more details on our website at iiba.org/cybersecurity. And I'd like to take another moment to thank our attendees for being here today. As mentioned, we will send a follow-up email, but please feel free to respond with any questions or comments you may have. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.